The phone rings, and you feel your whole body tense up. It's not that you're busy. It's not that you don't care who's calling. It's something deeper, something most people will never fully get, because to them a call is just a call. But for you, it's an interruption, an instant demand, a no-script situation where you have to improvise in real time while someone waits on the other end. People assume hating phone calls means you're rude, antisocial, or bad at communicating. But psychology tells a different story, one that has way more to do with how your brain is wired than with your willingness to connect. If you're the kind of person who lets it ring until it hits voicemail, who feels actual physical relief when the call ends, who would rather wait 3 days than return a missed call, that's not a character flaw. It's the result of a very specific set of psychological traits working together in ways nobody ever explained to you. And today, we're breaking them down. Here are the psychological traits people almost never mention when they talk about why some of us hate phone calls. 1. High sensitivity to sensory overload. When the phone rings, it doesn't just ring in your ears, it rings in your entire nervous system. If you're a highly sensitive person, that sound triggers a cascade of internal reactions most people don't even notice. Your brain instantly starts running the checklist. Who is it? What do they want? How long will this take? What tone am I supposed to use? What if it's bad news? Psychologists call this deep processing of stimuli. You're not being dramatic. Your nervous system processes information more intensely and more thoroughly than average. What feels like a simple ring to someone else hits you like an alarm that yanks you out of whatever mental state you were in. And there's more. The human voice over the phone comes with zero visual context. You can't see their face. You can't read body language. You don't get the little signals that tell you if they're joking or serious. So your brain, built to catch nuance, ends up working overtime trying to decode cues that aren't even there. From the outside, it looks like you just don't want to answer. On the inside, your mind is scanning for risk, predicting scenarios, bracing for impact. That's exhausting. And your dislike of calls isn't laziness. It's your nervous system asking you to protect it from unnecessary overload. 2. A need to control the pace of interaction. Think about texting. A message comes in. You read it when you can. You think. You reply. You edit if you want. You send it when you're ready. You control the timing. You decide when you enter the conversation. Now think about a phone call. It rings and demands an immediate response. No pause to think. No draft. No chance to take back what you just said. It's live communication with no safety net. For people with a high need for autonomy, that can feel invasive. Not because they don't care, but because calls force an external tempo onto a space they need to manage. Psychology links this to a preference for asynchronous interaction. It's not fear of human contact. It's preferring contact that respects your internal timing. That moment when you see an incoming call and it feels like someone just walked into your house without knocking. That's not you being dramatic. That's a real need for your mental space to be respected before someone demands something from you. 3. Anticipatory anxiety and fear of real-time judgment. There's something uniquely exposing about a phone call. You can't hide behind emojis. You can't take a minute to craft the perfect response. You're live. And every awkward silence feels like it lasts forever. If you lean anxious socially, calls can trigger what experts call anticipatory anxiety. Before you even pick up, your mind is already running simulations of everything that could go wrong. What if I say something stupid? What if I don't understand them? What if there's a long pause and they think I'm weird? It's not that you truly believe it'll happen. It's that your brain can't stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios as a way to prepare. And that constant rehearsal is draining. What's funny is a lot of people like this are amazing communicators in writing. Eloquent, precise, even hilarious. But put them on a call, and they feel like they lose access to that version of themselves. Like the live format disconnects the part of their brain where their best communication lives. The fear isn't talking. The fear is being judged before you've had time to show who you actually are. Subscribe if you're enjoying the video. 4. Deep introversion and the need to process before responding. For introverts, thinking and speaking work best as two separate steps. First I think, then I talk. Phone calls smash those together in real time. Someone asks something and expects an immediate answer, leaving no room for the internal processing you need to feel comfortable with your own words. Research shows introverts often use longer neural pathways to process information. That doesn't mean they're slower. It means they're more thorough. Their thinking moves through more layers before turning into speech. A call interrupts that. It forces you to serve up answers before they're fully cooked. And that creates this constant feeling of being one step behind, like you can't quite say what you actually mean. Then you hang up and replay the whole thing thinking, I should have said that differently. That's why after a call, you often need time alone. Not because the call was terrible, because your brain needs time to process what happened and close all the mental tabs that got opened during that conversation. 5. Past experiences that wired calls to mean trouble. Here's something people overlook. Sometimes you hate calls because your brain learned to associate them with hard moments. Think back. How many times did you get bad news over the phone? How many uncomfortable arguments happened on calls? How often did a ringing phone mean someone was about to ask for something, complain about something, demand something? Psychologists call this emotional conditioning. Your brain links certain cues with certain feelings. So if calls were your main channel for conflict, pressure, or stress, your nervous system learned to treat them like potential threats. It doesn't matter if today's call is totally harmless. Your body reacts first, based on old patterns that got wired in long before you could consciously choose how to interpret an incoming call. That's why you can feel a knot in your stomach before you even know who it is. It's not the content that triggers you, it's the format, loaded with associations you may not remember consciously, but your body hasn't forgotten. 6. Communication perfectionism and fear of being imprecise. Some people weigh every word, not out of vanity, but because they value precision. They want to say exactly what they mean, no more, no less, and phone calls are the enemy of that. When you write, you can reread, you can delete. You can make sure each sentence lands exactly the way you intended. But live speech? Once the words are out, you can't pull them back. You say something slightly wrong, and now it's floating out there. Easy to misinterpret, completely out of your control. For someone with perfectionistic tendencies, that feels deeply uncomfortable. Not because they want to look perfect, but because imprecision creates internal noise. This sense that you didn't express yourself clearly, that you left loose ends, that the other person walked away with a distorted or incomplete picture. That's why you'd often rather send a long, detailed message than have a 2-minute call. It's not inefficiency, it's how you make sure what you communicate is exactly what you meant. 7. The feeling that calls rarely respect your boundaries. Phone calls have a way of ignoring your time and energy limits. A text can be answered in 1 sentence. A call can drag on forever. And if you're protective of your emotional resources, that unpredictability is exhausting. You know the feeling. A call that should have been 5 minutes turns into 20. You don't know how to end it without sounding rude. Meanwhile, your energy is draining, your mental to-do list is growing, and part of you wants to hang up, while another part doesn't want to hurt the other person's feelings. People who are highly aware of their internal limits struggle with this the most, because they know exactly how much energy they have, and they can literally feel the call consuming it. That's not selfishness. That's emotional survival. And here's the paradox. The more empathetic you are, the harder it is to cut the call, because you're tracking how the other person will feel if you end it abruptly. So you stay, and you pay for it later, needing hours to recover from a conversation you didn't even want. 8. Preferring depth over immediacy calls reward speed, quick replies, quick decisions, quick wrap-ups. But some minds just don't work that way. Some people need time to reach answers that actually feel true to them. They'd rather have fewer interactions, but more meaningful ones. For that kind of mind, calls can feel shallow, not because the person doesn't matter, but because the format doesn't allow the depth you need for the conversation to feel worth it. Psychology recognizes this as a preference for high-quality connection over high-quantity connection. You don't want to talk to a lot of people all the time. You want to talk to a few people in a way that actually matters. So casual check-in calls, just calling to say hi, can feel like noise that pulls you away from the conversations that genuinely feed you. It's not that you're antisocial. Your threshold for what counts as real connection is just higher than most people's, and phone calls rarely hit that threshold. If you made it this far and saw yourself in several of these points, that's not a coincidence. These traits don't usually show up alone. They tend to cluster into a coherent psychological profile. High sensitivity, introversion, a need for control, communication perfectionism, a preference for depth. Different pieces of the same puzzle. And that puzzle doesn't spell broken. It spells wired differently. It's the nervous system of someone who needs more time, more control, and more space than average to function at their best. That's not weakness. It's difference. The issue was never that you hate calls. The issue is we live in a culture that treats phone calls like the right way to communicate, and everything else like avoidance. But that's a bias, not a truth. You can connect deeply without answering every incoming call. You can build meaningful relationships while still respecting your limits and the way you process the world. Understanding why calls drain you isn't an excuse to isolate. It's useful information. So you can design a communication life that works for you. So you can consciously choose when a call is worth it and when a message does the job better. So you can stop feeling guilty every time the phone rings and you decide not to pick up. You're not broken. You're not rude. You're not antisocial. You're someone whose nervous system processes interaction differently. And the sooner you stop forcing yourself to function like you're someone else, the sooner you'll find ways to communicate that energize you instead of draining you. Next time you let it ring and you feel that stab of guilt, remember this. Protecting your energy isn't rejecting people. It's making sure that when you do communicate, you can actually be present. And honestly, that's the most respectful thing you can do for yourself and for others. Subscribe if you liked the video.